Hello, welcome to Skelmersdale, a town of around 40,000 people that's mostly the result of a plan created in the early 1960s that saw several new towns constructed to house overspill population from larger cities, in this case Liverpool. As with most 1960s planning and infrastructure, they had big dreams and were looking to create towns that could house upwards of 80,000 people. Yeah, it's good to have a goal, isn't it? But when it comes to Skelmersdale, it's a swing and a miss. Things did not work out how they had in mind. In the early 1970s, whilst the new town of Skelmersdale was being put together, pretty much every large-scale industry or employer moved out of the town, taking with them all of the money. And overnight, Skelmersdale fell into a state of poverty with mass unemployment, with the bonus of high crime levels because no one had anything better to do or any money. This abrupt change in Skelmersdale led to the new town plan coming to a halt. With no jobs and no money, no one was going to move there, and the existing residents couldn't wait to leave, no doubt. Whilst that all sounds like fun, I'm more interested in the road network because its construction also came to a halt pretty much halfway through building what could have been a near-perfect road system for a large town. It could have been, but it isn't. It's actually a mess of unfinished nonsense. Should we take a look? Skelmersdale road network was designed around a system that uses roundabouts, doing away with the need for traffic lights, and indeed it's said that there's only one set of traffic lights within the entire town. And they're rubbish. They're found to the north of the town and they only exist to serve as a traffic light controlled crossing. Anyway, I digress. There are three main roads that make up the bulk of the network: the A577, A5068, the B5312, and we've also got a little bonus section to look at a bit later, but let's start with the footbridge on the A577. This is Beacon Footbridge, which in itself is fairly uninteresting, but underneath we notice that the road is perhaps slightly off-centre, and this is because space or provisions have been made for what was supposed to be an additional carriageway. The A577 was going to be a dual carriageway along its entire length, but they only managed to build a small section running from Windmill Roundabout to the M58 motorway before the project was cancelled. More evidence of a missing dual carriageway can be found at the Windmill Roundabout itself, where we see that there's a lot of space between the carriageways. The original plan suggests a flyover would have been constructed to take the A577 over the roundabout as part of a proper junction before continuing along as a dual carriageway under the Beacon Footbridge. That's not the only evidence of a missing dual carriageway though. If we move up the A577, hiding in the bushes is a bridge that's been built wide enough to accommodate a dual carriageway, but it's now mostly hidden by nature given only half of it is used. But further along the A577 are some far more obvious leftovers of the old road plans. There's a couple of bits of extra road that seemingly serve no purpose, and yeah, fair enough, they don't. But had everything been built to plan, they'd have been part of a rather sizable interchange where it's most likely that the A577 would have continued to the north before looping around the town, and what we call the A577 today would have been built as a different dual carriageway. Interestingly, the tight curve on the A577 was supposed to be one of the slip roads for the Trumpet interchange, but today it's just part of the main road. Next up is Half Mile Island, a roundabout connecting the A577 with the A5068 that claims to be the largest in Europe, or at least at the time of construction it was, and you might have guessed by the name Half Mile Island, it's around a quarter mile in diameter. Although interestingly, it possibly wasn't going to be a roundabout at all. Some plans suggest that it was going to be a larger free-flowing interchange, and indeed, that's why the roundabout isn't round. It's been designed with a larger junction in mind. However, I get the impression that this was an idea for the future, and the more short-term plan was for the A5068 to pass over the roundabout via a flyover. Once again, we can see that space has been left between the carriageways for that to happen. From Half Mile Island, we're going to move on to the A5068, which for a short distance was actually completed to plan as a dual carriageway, and it takes us past what is, according to TripAdvisor, the #1 visitor attraction in Skelmersdale, so I thought we should go and take a look. It's around here somewhere. Here it is, the #1 tourist attraction with a rating of 4.7 out of 5 on TripAdvisor, the Big Pipe, and it's a big pipe with some concrete and you'll find it out the back of Asda. I don't know anything about it, it's likely a water pipe, aka sewage dumping into a river pipe, but it is the #1 attraction, therefore a must when visiting Skelmersdale. And if you do visit, one of the first things you might see when entering Skelmersdale is the elements on Hope Island roundabout, placed in such a way to make you think, oh, lovely, Skelmersdale can't be all that bad. It is. The art installation was installed in 2002 as a tribute to anyone dealing with cancer, and it's one of a few installations around the town. You can't polish a turd, but goddammit, they're going to try. Hope Island Roundabout is also another example of a missing flyover, much like before, there's space between the carriageways, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same story at the next junction along the B5312, known as Bone Island. But this one is a little bit more interesting because at the junction are some unfinished roads and carriageways. Perhaps obviously they would have connected up via a flyover of sorts, but you'll notice that this junction isn't a roundabout like the others, and that's because the plan for Bone Island was a little more extensive than just a flyover. It was going to be built as a large free-flowing interchange with looped slip roads connecting what would have been two dual carriageways. I assume that when it was realised the project was to be cancelled, they threw together what we see today as a quick fix. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the absurd choice to design Bone Island in the shape of a, well, it's a bone, isn't it? Hence the name, but the point is it's all rather silly and I don't know why they did that. Moving on from Bone Island, and there's not much to say about the rest of the B5312 because this short section seems to have been mostly completed as per the original plan. Its most notable feature would be that two junctions have been built pretty much next to one another, which is less than ideal in terms of road design, but it was the 1960s and they didn't care. Despite being a dual carriageway, it has a 50-mile-per-hour speed limit due to the junctions being so close to one another, but I assume this was introduced in more recent times, and back in the day you could barrel down there at 70. An interesting feature found at both junctions is that they're all left turn only. If you want to go right, you'll have to go around one of the roundabouts and come back on yourself. The reason they're left turn only is why this section is mostly complete, but not completely complete. The original plan suggests that the junctions were supposed to have access in all directions, but for some reason, the appropriate right turns didn't get built, and now we're stuck with quite an odd arrangement. Last junction fact, whilst not completed fully, they're the only two junctions built on the entire road network that are properly grade separated, and they're one of the oldest parts too. If you were to take either of those junctions, you'll find yourself on the bonus section of road that I mentioned earlier, which is also a dual carriageway, but this one runs right through the middle of a residential area, which seems like madness, but it was very intentional. In fact, the original plan was for every housing estate within the town to be connected with a dual carriageway much like this. Around Skelmersdale, you'll find lots of space left over to build such a dual carriageway in many of the housing estates, but the only place they actually built it, according to the plan, was here on the southeast side of Skelmersdale. Fun fact, a lot of the original housing estates have road names all beginning with the same letter. These all start with A, these ones B, this one's C, and I think they managed to get through the entire alphabet across the town. No Z though. And connecting to or from that residential dual carriageway is probably the best example of an unfinished road by way of the Thorn Island Roundabout and Gillibrands Road. Here we find two pairs of unfinished carriageway stubs that clearly would have connected over the roundabout via a flyover. If all completed, a dual carriageway would have run through the industrial estate, meaning there would have been a speedy road connection between the housing estates and various workplaces. Too bad all of the industry moved out. Although technically they did build but the tiniest of sections of dual carriageway within the industrial estate, today disguised as a parking lay-by, and I think it was built because of this bridge that's part of the A5068. The bridge was built to accommodate a dual carriageway underneath, and whilst building it, I assume they just chucked in the carriageways underneath in preparation for things to be built later, but when later never came, it was turned into a lay-by. And there we are, that's the unfinished Skelmersdale road system. And maybe now you're wondering, will they ever finish building it? No, there's actually very little point. The road system as it stands is more than enough for the town's size, and given nobody wants to move to Skelmersdale, it's unlikely to grow anytime soon. So for now, the half-finished road system is more than adequate for the half-full Skelmersdale. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.